That was Tom Petty and I Won't Back Down, I believe is the title of that. And Tom Petty. Now, we are on percents. And so the question, what are we doing tomorrow? What kind of documentation do I want? And what's the use of the calculator for tomorrow? Let me summarize those. Tomorrow will be the test on the percent unit, and you will need a calculator that you must use for the last problem in the test. And it's a case where I'll want you to give me the discount. Otherwise, I start with the retail price. I want the discount, the sale price, the tax, and then what we consider the final price, or out the door. And on the basis of that, then, the argument is you want to go ahead and do that all on the calculator as you go down the steps of the problem. So I'm expecting and recommend a calculator like this. So as we go to the document cam, this is the calculator I would like you to be using. Not this specific calculator, but one like this. It's called a four-function calculator, not a scientific calculator. And the argument that these are typically the calculator you may have kicking around the house. It's small enough you can put it into your pocket, put it into a purse, you can carry it in a backpack, and it's very useful. You'd be amazed at how much you can do with such a calculator. Now we're using the percent key to help us. So let's start with this problem, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you to think a little bit of the process. Now, keep in mind that you have to do the percent test on page 119. Let's go to the last problem there. Now, I'm asking you to use the percent key in a calculator to find the discount, the sale price, the tax, and the final price. Now, I want you to think through this with me before we do it in the calculator, because we're going to use some mental arithmetic with your knowledge of percents and fractions and decimals. So will you note, as you look at the middle of the screen, that the price on our item is at about $400? Do you concur? The price is at about $400. Let's come off there now. Now, what was the discount rate? 25%. Let's come back to the problem one more time. 25% discount, correct? Okay, coming off there. What is 25% as a common fraction? 1/4. Do we agree? Mm-hmm. I'm hearing 1/4. 25% is 25 over 100, also known as 1/4. So if I'm supposed to multiply by 25%, it's the same as multiplying by 1/4. What is 400 times 1/4? 1/4 of 400. $99. No, just 100. Up. It's 100. 1/4 of 400 is 100. So our discount is roughly $100. So what is our sale price? Retail at 400, discount at 100, your sale price? $300. Okay, let's go back to the problem for a moment. We know that we expect to see something around 300. Now the tax rate is more like Merced's, as I'm told, 7.25%. But I'm going to use that at roughly 7%. Okay, so coming off there. What's 7% as a decimal? 7% as a decimal is my question. 0.07. Agreed? So 7% is 0.07. What is 100 times 0.07? What do you do to the decimal when you multiply by 100? You move it to the right 2 places. So 100 times 0.07 is 7. So there's $7 on 100. How much in 300? $21. Again, my question was, if there's $7 tax on 100, how much tax on 300? 21. Now those are all proportion problems. But the argument is, as I go to the board, that my retail price, so retail was roughly $400. Because the discount was 25%, I took the discount and did this. Now my argument is you can do this in your head to get roughly what the answer should be. Because 25% was 1/4. That 4 doesn't look as nice as the other 4, so let me increase its size. So the 1/4 and the 400 cancel to give you 100. So then if that's the discount, the sale price had to be roughly what? 300. And then I said if the tax is 7%, 0.07, then for $100, you multiply 100 times 0.07, and the decimal goes 2 places to the right. So that times 10 to the second gave you 7, but I had 3 of them. So my tax was 21. So we know at the end, out the door, it should be roughly 321, and I've never had to use the calculator, and I was able to do it in my head. That's what I want you to be able to do. Now, as you do this problem in the calculator, you're going to enter numbers that are the exact numbers. Now, back to the problem in the book. On the document cam, that was $399.50, correct? So you're going to put $399.50. Then you're going to do what? Times your 25, and then you hit the percent key. Now, at that point, what do you get in the percent key? 99 what? Well, it's a 99, and then what are the next 2 digits? 8, 7, no, next digit, 5. Now, this is a discount, correct? What do we do with discounts? Round them down. Now, in the text, I round off mathematically, and I would round this off to 99.88. But in terms of what's likely to happen at a store, they will round down. And they will say 99.87 is the number they will most likely give as the discount. Now, how do I get my sale price with the calculator? After I hit the percent key, I hit minus because I'm going to subtract that discount. And then I hit the equal sign on most calculators. And now you're going to get something close to $300. What is it? $299.63, because we rounded this down. Do we agree? Now that's your sale price. And that's roughly 300. That's what we expected. So if I think of what we did earlier, where we did it mentally, we have something close to 300. Next step in the calculator is to do what?
Times it by the sales tax.
Okay, no, not times the sale price, times the tax. Oh, sales tax, I didn't hear you. 7.25, and hit the percent key, and this should be close to $21, correct? That's our argument. 21, now be careful, it's 21.7, and what are the next 2 digits? I want the next 2 digits after the 21. 7. What were your next 2 digits? 22? So what are you going to typically be expected to do? What happens to taxes? They'll tend to be rounded up. Taxes usually go up, not down. That's a good way of thinking of it. Now, that means I would be paying 21 what? 73. So what do I do to get my final price? I hit the plus, and then the equals, and what do you get then? Just on your calculator. 321. Well, 3 what now? 321. Okay, more garbage to come. So the question, what has to match up here? The 299.13 added to what? 299.63, I'm sorry, I read it as a 1. This number here is your sale price. This number here was the sales tax. Those two together must add up to what? The final price.
It was 321.347.
347. Okay, but my point being, these two must add up, correct? So instead of saying 35, I'm going to say, okay, this is the number you had. Here's what you're going to report. Because what must work on an invoice? I show you the retail price. I show you the discount. Once I have the discount, I give you the sale price. I tell you what the tax is, and the sale price and the tax should be what? This amount, even though your calculator is coming out at 3.5. Your sales receipt on an invoice, the numbers have to match up. Okay, so you have to be cautious about that. Round down for discounts, round up for taxes, and make sure that your invoice, the numbers check. We got it? Now let's do another one just for practice, because you aren't going to have the table in front of you to follow. Let's go to that last problem in the supplementaries. So I'll come back to the center. Okay. I keep saying that, Ernie, and somebody's going to think I actually have a communications center up here. This is page 123. We're going to do this one more time. Here are my numbers this time. Now I'm going to again play a game of think your way through it first. So you're going to have to listen rather carefully. Look at your numbers. Just look at what I have there. And I want you to think how we would do this without the calculator in our head. So my question, so I come off there now. $250. How do you find 10% of anything?
45.
No, answer my question. How do you find 10% of anything?
10
Make
out
it
of
to a
100.
decimal and move the decimal point over.
You move the decimal one place over. 10% is 10 over 100, which is 1/10. When you divide by 10, that's 10 to the first. The decimal goes one place to the left. So if I go to the board and I look at $250 and I want it times 10%, my argument is that that's 250 times 10 over 100.
50%.
I understand what it is. It's 15, but I'm asking a different question for the moment. I'll get to the answer in the book here in just a moment. My question is, 10 over 100 becomes what? 1 over 10, correct? So this says you have 250 over 10 to the first, and you always move the decimal to the left when you divide by a power of 10. So this just becomes $25. Now my question, if 10% is $25, what's 5%?
$12.50.
Okay, $12.50 is correct, but think of my question. If 10% is 25, 5% should just be half of that. So 5% gives you $12.50. So could you, in your head, give me 15%? Add the 25, the $12.50, and you're going to get what? $37.50 without having to do any work on a calculator. Now you have to do a lot of work in your head. Okay, let's go back to the original problem. Now taxes at 4%. Boy, wouldn't that be nice to have a tax at 4% instead of 7 something. But let's come back to that. How do you get, as we come off there now, how do we get 1% of something? Now you know how to get 10%. We said you move the decimal one place to the left for 10%. How do you get 1%? Yes, 2 places to the left. So if I started with 250 and I wanted times 1%, then the argument is that that is really 250 times 1 over what? 100. But that then is really what? 250 times 1 over 10 to the second. And yes, you move the decimal 2 places to the left, so that'll be $2.50 for what? 1%. So what is 4%? 1% is 2.5. What is 4%?
$7.
$10. 1% gave me 2.5. 4% is 4 times as much. 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 times 0.5 is 2. So that would give us what? 4% would be $10. Now, keep in mind that once I take the discount, I'm not going to have $250 that I am taxed on. So it's going to change slightly. But you should get a sense that your taxes should be under $10. I think it'll turn out 8. And your sale price is going to be $212.50. So we're going to start with $250, go to $212.50, then we're going to get taxed at $850 and end up with $221 is my recollection. Let's go back to the problem. Document cam. Take the calculator and carry it through now. Just look at the document cam, and I want the calculator to go ahead and give me the answer here. So I want you to carry this through. You start with 250, multiply by your 15%, get your sale price. Then I want you to go ahead, 4% for the tax, and I want you to give me the final price out the door at that point. While you're doing that, I'm pouring some coffee. That sounds like a fair trade-off. So you work, I drink. Okay. So keeping that on the board or on the screen, I'm going to go over to the side and let's see what we get. So we have a 250. You should have been able to carry this through. Let's see what we have now as we come to the board. So you entered 250, correct? Then you did what? Plot times. Then what? Next step. 25. Then you hit the percent. And at that time, I think you saw 37.50. Do we agree? No, yes, at 37.50. Then you hit a minus key, an equal, and you should have seen 212.50. Then you hit times, you hit 7.25, hit your percent key. What do you get? $8? $8.50? $8.50 or $8.51? Okay, which one's wrong?
It's not 25, it's 15.
Oh, it's 15%. Thank you. I was thinking of 25%. Thank you, Teresa. So 15%. My apologies. And that gives us our $37.50. Then we get $8.50 for our tax. Then you hit what? Add the tax in. So plus equals. Man, I'm running numbers that are bogus. Thank you. I have both percents wrong. Very bad. Thank you. Not enough coffee yet, obviously. Okay, and then when you hit your plus equal, 221, is there an agreement there?
Yeah.
So these are the numbers you see as you go along. So if I give you this on a test, discount, you would write in $37.50. For the sale price, you would write down the $212.50. For the tax, you would write down $8.50. And then for the out the door or final price, you would write $221 and you'd be done. Now that's all I need to see in your output on the test, last problem tomorrow.
So you just need to tell me.
Just these.
Okay.
Fill in the blanks. Now, I expect you to use your calculator to do it. Okay? Now, one of the things, if you haven't been practicing with the calculator, it may not be something that you're going to remember well. So make sure you spend some time practicing it. Now, what is different about this solution and what I'm going to expect on another problem? Okay, so let's take a look at the third problem on that percent test. I think it's the third problem. Is it the one about 35 and 45? No, okay. Is it number 8? Okay, so it's number 8 on the supplements, right? Okay, so number 8 on the supplementary. I don't know if I have that on the document cam or not. Let's try it, Ernie, and see what we have. Let's just see what we have. We'll go back to the document cam. That is going to be the 9th problem, correct? So what I will do is move that up in a moment. I'll have Ernie come back to center on it for a moment. I'll move this up to the 8th problem. And so here's the way it's stated. You get 35 problems correct on a 45 question test. The percent correct is what you want. Now on this problem, what you were supposed to see last night was that you wanted percent. So you needed to document that with a formula. So let's come back to the problem again. The fact that I'm asking for percent is a lot like what we did in the how much unit. Ask what it is you want. So I wanted, so I'll write up here, want percent. So I'm going to write a formula. Percent equals what? The part divided by the whole, or over the whole. Now, next question, the comment here. You can write it that way if you would prefer this. I don't object. That is also acceptable because they mean the same thing. But now a question. As you look at problems like this, the biggest difficulty when you're hunting for percent is to decide what's the part and what's the whole. Now, what is the rule of thumb that we can use? The part should usually be smaller. I concur. Not always, but most of the time. So majority of the problems you do, the part will be the smallest number. You could get that problem where we're talking about something that markup, you know, where you pay $10 for it and sell it for $40 because it's in demand. Okay? Those problems are different. But most part, the part is the small number. Back to the problem. My small number is 35. My big number is 45. So the next step, as we come back to the board, you show me the substitution. So the formula in any one of these forms, then your substitution, which is 35. I would prefer personally at this point to put it over 45. But if you put divided by 45, I don't disagree. It's just this is more comfortable for me. And by the way, can you reduce that in your head?
Yes.
What is your answer if you can? 7 over 9, agreed? What do you know about 7 over 9? As a decimal. No, as a decimal. 9's not prime. 7 is. They're relatively prime. But what is 7/9 as a decimal? That's the shortcut. It repeats. What repeats? Your numerator. So if you have 7 over 9, you know that your 7s are going to repeat as a decimal. So you know this is going to come out 0.77777 forever. So we would round off to the nearest percent and say 78% to the nearest percent. Now if you said 77 and 7/9%, that would be acceptable also. Well, 77.8 is your decimal approximation for 77.7 forever percent. So 77.8 to the nearest tenth, that's correct. 77 and 7/9% is the most accurate. 78% to the nearest percent is acceptable. So there are several versions. You can say 77.8%. You can say 77 and 7/9%. You can say 78%. This was to the nearest tenth, this is to the nearest percent, and this is the best answer of them all. Well, it's a C+. Okay? C+. Now, that's the documentation I need to see on the problems in the test for the first 9 problems. Then, the last problem is just the calculator problem. So the intent here would be tomorrow, I would want to see all your work done in the book for the percent unit. All problems done. I'll check that while you're doing the test. Let's come back to the document cam for a moment, Ernie. That's still a problem in the supplementaries. So this is your time now if you have questions on other problems in this unit that you want to talk about. So are there other problems that you need to look at? Number what? Number 3. Now, which is it, on the supplementaries? Okay, so the supplementary problems, number 3. Okay. This is a neat problem because there are a whole bunch of answers that are all wrong, but they're close. A bunch of answers that technically are all wrong, but close. So, a store advertises, you save $45, and it was a what? 33.33% discount. So you get the discount rate, not the discount, but the rate of discount. You're given a percent, and you save $45. What am I hunting for? Okay, I want the whole. They've given me the discount and the percent. So this is number 3. What is my documentation going to be? So we go to the board. Okay, the whole equals part of, and in this case, do you want me to put over or divide by? Whatever I want, okay, then I get to choose. I'll go part over percent. That's my choice. Okay, so we put in some numbers. That's my documentation. The part is, back to the document cam for a moment, $45. Agreed? I'll put my units. Now, what is your choice here? 33.3%. Okay, so I'm going to have a percent with it. Now, is that really an accurate statement? It would be better as what? Well, wait a minute. I could go ahead and get more accuracy by doing this. Agreed? That'll be a little more accurate. But I can get more accuracy if I do what? Well, another 3. And how many 3s could I have? Well, in a calculator, I'm limited to about 8 of them, right? 7 or 8 after the decimal point. Those will all work. Now, when you do this as a decimal, please understand that each of these would be as a decimal 0.33, then 0.3333, then 0.33333. All of them are going to give you close answers. What's the best answer? Nope. Nope. I'm hearing some numbers I'm saying nope to. The best answer is 45 over 1/3. Well, it means multiply, invert and multiply. So 3 times 45 is exactly $135. Now, all the other answers, then I assume that each of these is going to come out what? 134.9 something. Agreed? So let's get some answers here, and let's just see what we get as we take more and more 3s. So what's 45 divided by 33.3%? So what I'm asking you to do is take the 45, divide by, put 33.3, hit your percent key, and you should get a number for me. What is that? Okay, so it went over a little bit. Is that correct?
I got 135.
So 135, 135, and just keeps going, right?
Yeah.
I'll put a little plus for garbage to come. Okay, because it should have been a lot of 3s underneath, not just 3 of them. And so we get a little more than we expected. So each of these should be 135 something, not 134. That's my
The 0.33 is 135.0135.
0135 and garbage to come. The next one.
Is 135.00135.
Okay, so as I keep throwing on more 3s, I keep getting closer and closer to what? 135. So technically, the right answer is this, and each of these is progressively what? A closer approximation. Now notice what happens here. If I round this off to the nearest penny, I get 135. So it comes the closest of any of these others. But 33 1/3% is 1/3, so it's nice to use that fraction and use this to get the correct answer.
I have a
Question on this, okay?
I cannot remember how to get when you change 33 1/3% to a common fraction.
Okay, 33 1/3. This is going back to a problem we did earlier. 33 1/3%. How did I force that into a common fraction? Okay, so let's. Okay, first.
Or no, it was the 133.
Okay, but let's do this one for a moment. Since isn't this also the case? As a decimal, you move the decimal point 2 places to the left,
Right.
and you know, I hope, that that decimal is 1/3. But what if you don't? You could argue this. I'm just going to set this up so you can remember we did this all the way back in lesson 18. So we're going to have to slide a little bit to the left with the blue, unfortunately. So just bring it over so I have a little bit of space the other way. Other way, I'll have the blue. There, I want to come back over here and try to write on the board and bring it in a little bit tighter if you would, Ernie, because that isn't probably as readable as I'd like. Okay, that's helping. Now, what is 33 1/3 as an improper fraction? 33 1/3 over as a 100 over 3. Very good. And that's divided by what? 100 over 1. So if I take this, divide by this, invert and multiply, 1/3. We can always use that technique. Okay?
Will you do the 133 1/3? 4/3.
Okay, well, let's see what happens if you have 100. It's 133 1/3%?
Change it to a common.
Okay, 133 1/3%. This, wait and watch now. This is 1.333 1/3, but that is the same as 1 and 1/3, which is 4/3. Bring it here. This becomes 400. That becomes 4/3. I'll leave that up on the board. Same argument. It's just not very comfortable going. Let's come back there just for a moment longer, if you would, Ernie. Again, so people can see it on the screen at home because they don't have the luxury there of looking at the boards.
Okay.
So that's a very typical problem. It's a very important one, and one I expect you to be able to do. Okay, again, the argument here, not that I'm arguing with you, but the point I'm making is you should be able to go through and do what with all these problems? Set them up and get answers, and you have, I believe, let's see, we have 5 in the review test, 9 in the supplementary, that's 14, plus what, about 10 of them as you go through the unit? Is that correct? And so that's at about 24 problems, very close to 25 problems I expect you to have done. Are there questions and other problems in the unit? Questions and other problems? Leanne, that looks like a question, is it or isn't it? Okay. I just saw the thought that maybe it was a question, but not. Anybody else have a question? Because tomorrow my intent would be to go ahead and collect these problems. So should we just do a few more problems that you practice on? Should we try that? More or less? I'm not, okay, I will then. Is there, pardon? Okay, number 3 in the test, a question on that. Be happy to do that. So that's on page, is it about 119?
Yeah.
119. This is number 3. Now, as we read the problem, you have a car dealer tells you that if you can come up with $3,800, you can drive this $20,000 car and take it home and it's yours. Okay, so just $3,800. So the question, what is the setup? Now what I'm going to do, Ernie, is there's a little bit of space right behind me. So if we bring camera 2 maybe right in where I'm pointing, and we'll go to there in a moment, and that's the space I'll use. So I'll just indicate this is number 3 now in the percent test. So let me write that. And as before we go to the board, what am I hunting for in this problem? Percent, isn't it? What percent? So it's like the how much unit. What is it you're hunting for? We want percent. So I'm going to write percent. So as I go to the board, what's my formula? Okay, I'm going to have part of over the whole. Or you could say what? Rather than part of over whole, what's another version? Percentage over the base. P over B. Okay, so it could be this, or just say the percentage over the base. Saves writing. Now the question, what are your substitutions? Let's go back to the problem. What is the part that you're supposed to pay? $3,800. And the price of the vehicle? $20,000, correct? Now that's my substitution. Now, without your calculator, can you give me the answer? How could I simplify that fraction? I can reduce. Let's divide 100 into the numerator, 100 into the denominator, and what do you get? 100 into the numerator, 100 into the denominator. And my argument is this should be what? 38 over 200. Now that was an easy part. Can you reduce that for me? Dividing top and bottom by 2. What's 2 into 38? What? Close. You're thinking 28. I've got 38. Try again. You're thinking the right thing. Reduce it so I have something over 100. 19 over 100. Agreed? But what is 19 over 100 known as? Thank you. Yes, you're done. That's 19%. Is that making sense? Okay? Or making percents? With a bit of a bad pun. Any other question in that problem? That was number 3 on the percent test. Okay, any other questions? As I say, I can go ahead and just come up with some additional problems we can look at. But is there a question in the unit that you've been working on as I come back center? Okay. Is there another problem that you wanted to discuss? So we are okay. Let me then come up with a problem. Let's see what we can do here. Trying to think of a problem that comes to my mind. You go to buy a house. Are you familiar with the concept of points in house buying? What does a point refer to? It's a percent. So when you buy a house, there are points charged so that the paperwork is paid for. How many points often get charged in buying a house? Anybody? sometimes as high as 5. Who pays them?
You do.
When you say you do. Well, the buyer or the person who's selling?
The buyer.
The buyer in a good market, everybody's hunting for the house. Everybody's buying house. Not today, but what it was a few months back, where a house in the market might get sold in a week. In certain parts of California, people even would overpay to get the house. So if you have it up for $300,000, somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I'll take it for $350," because they want to beat out anybody else's offer. Okay? So they want the house badly. Today, the $300,000 house might sell for what? $260,000 or $250,000 because people aren't buying. So in that market, if I want to encourage you to buy my house, what might I be willing to do? Well, I could reduce the price, or I could also do what? Pay the points. So in the buyer's market, the seller may be paying for the points. But in the seller's market, which means things are not good, okay, well, I guess I didn't phrase that right, because if it is a buyer's market, that means that that's where things would be right now. The selling prices are really down. It's a buyer's market right now because the prices are really depressed. And a lot of buyers are waiting for what? Even further. They think it's going to bottom out, so why buy it and have it go down in price? The seller's market, okay, is where the prices are very high and the demand is big and the buyer will pay whatever you want. That's the seller's market. Now, in a seller's market, the person buying the house often pays for the points. But in the buyer's market, the seller is anxious to sell the house and hey, I'll reduce the price and I'll pay the points. So let's say the points are like 3 points. And the house reduced price is at $300,000. So the price of the house, $300,000, it's been reduced already. And the points are 3%. How much does the seller have to pay if the seller agrees to pay the points? $300,000 house, and it's 3 points to the seller to close the deal. How much is the seller giving away? Anybody? Well, I got 300,000 and I've got 3%. So Ernie, at this point, over under the clock, just to the left, there's some space. We'll go over there and try to set this problem up. So give me where it is discount, sale price, tax, and final price. Just below that, about a third to your from the left. Okay, well, let's see. Ernie's going to go to that space so I can walk over there. I'm walking into space, I guess. That makes me like an astronaut. That was a bad pun. Okay. So $300,000 for the price of the house. That's what it's been reduced. Now, points, 3 points. Now, that means 3%. What is 1%? What is 1% of 300,000? How do I get the 1%? Move the decimal 2 places to the left. 3,000 for 1%. So your 3% will be $9,000 that the seller agrees to pay, which means you've already reduced the price of the house and then you're giving away more money just to sell the house. Okay, well, it's, you know, the buyer is coming out okay in this, but if you're selling your house, you have a different view, right? So if you're selling, you're unhappy, but if you're buying, you're happy. It's difficult to keep both the buyer and the seller happy. Okay? But that's the reality. 3 points, remember, is the same as 3%. Okay? Is it around 3% right now for seller points or whoever paying the point? Or is it at 5? Adrian, you gave me a 5. Is that realistic at this point, or just a stab in the dark? Stab in the dark.
I said, you just bought a house, you should know.
What was the point?
You just moved in.
Okay, just moved. Okay. You have to wait a while for, well, now if you wait long enough, the prices are going to go down that they're giving them to you. We'll give you the house. Buy 2, right?
I was looking last night while we were trick-or-treating, a lot of houses are for sale. And they look like $700,000 homes, but they're selling for $469,000.
Okay, so well, let's look at that problem. A 700,000 home, so 700K since I'm short of space. And you're saying they're selling for what?
For $469,000, and that was
For
the price for used.
$469,000. So this is the original. This is the price.
Well, no, I don't know if that's what they look like.
Okay, but let's guess that they're about 700,000, and they have them listed at about 469,000. So what is the difference? What is the reduction? How much have they been reduced? Subtract, and you get what? That's a big reduction. What is it? 231,000 price reduction. And you're going to divide that by what? The 700,000 to find out what the reduction was as a percent. By the way, what are they talking about when you read the newspapers right now? 10 and 20% reductions? So if I had a 10% reduction, it'd be 70,000. Okay? If I had a 20%, it would be 140,000. If I had a 30%, it would be 210,000. They've brought the price down more than 30%. What is this? 33%? So what it amounts to, they've taken a third off. They're anxious to sell. Okay, now what's the downside? If you did buy it right now and the prices slide even more, so let's say they drop down even further, then you end up with the mortgage in the house more than what you can get out of it selling it. So this happens to people when they buy high, the market flattens out, they have to move, and they sell their house and they lose money on it and still have to come up with a down payment in the new house. A very difficult scenario. And that's why people right now are being very hesitant to buy, because if the market slips further, then they're getting hurt. Well, at some point it's like you keep waiting for the price of TVs to come down, you'll never get a house. You have to buy at some point. Interesting problem. And this is all with the percent unit. Is it relevant? I think it's extremely relevant to the world we live in and the big amounts of money we spend, whether it's cars. And cars, by the way, the same issue here. If you're willing to buy an SUV or a big truck, you can get a pretty good deal right now, because Ford Motor Company is losing huge amounts of money because they can't sell those vehicles because of the amount of gas they consume. So if you've got money, you could probably gain something like this 1/3 off the price and then pay for gas.
Car insurance, kill you more than gas.
Well, car insurance, gas, it's all with the numbers.